People Power suggests work visa ban against Filipino domestic helpers. Government urged to look into possibility of taking back some military land, and Obama to nominate Janet Yellen as the first ever woman chair of the Fed. People Power lawmakers today suggested that the SAR government should impose a ban on Filipino domestic helpers. They hope that the proposed ban will pressure the Philippine government into giving compensation to survivors and families of victims of the Manila tour bus hostage tragedy 3 years ago. But foreign domestic helper agencies are against that suggestion, saying it might affect local families in the long run. Andrew Lau reports.
The controversy continued today over the Philippines government's refusal to give an official apology for its handling of the 2010 Manila tour bus hostage crisis. People Power urged the SAR government to force the Philippine government to compensate the victims and families of the deceased by not issuing any more work visas to Filipino domestic helpers. People Power legislator Albert Chan said the immigration ordinance auzes the Director of Immigration to impose a ban without going through the process of amending the law. But another lawmaker, Yip Kwok Him of the Democratic Alliance for the Betterment and Progress of Hong Kong, has reservations about the proposal. He said his party would discuss this at length because the ban would seriously affect Hong Kong families and might not be the most appropriate way to deal with the matter. What does the public think?
I don't think so it's fair enough for us Filipinos because we need more job. We need job, of course, to earn money.
If Taiwan can impose a ban on the Philippines, why can't we? I think we can easily find substitutes, this woman says. According to Immigration Department figures over the past 3 years, the number of newly recruited foreign domestic helpers has been on an upward trend, and Filipino domestic helpers account for about half of them. Kevin Wong from Technic Employment Service Center said a ban on Filipino domestic helpers may affect local families because it's not easy to find substitutes these days, as supply from Indonesia has been shrinking. Meanwhile, Secretary for Security Lai Tong Kwok said the government will consider the proposal carefully, but currently he doesn't think there are sufficient grounds for such a ban. Andrew Lau, TVB News.
Legislators are asking why details of a meeting between Chief Executive Leung Chun-ying and Philippine President Benigno Aquino have not been made public sooner than was the case. One lawmaker today accused Aquino of belittling Hong Kong. Meanwhile, legislator Regina Ip wants the government to set up a special fund to help the families of the victims of the Manila hostage killings. Jenny Lam reports.
This exchange between the chief executive and the president of the Philippines in Bali on Monday angered legislators. The government has not divulged whether they talked about the apology and compensation for the families of the victims of the Manila hostage killing.
Our CE in meeting the president of the Philippines, he was squeezed in a chair with two other officials, like small children. In releasing information, is there any mistake in terms of assessing when it's suitable to release information?
The Philippine president clearly did not take Hong Kong that seriously and appeared to be belittling Hong Kong in view of his repeated public remarks that he would not apologize on behalf of the former policemen who murdered Hong Kong citizens. I think there is no further point in pursuing an apology for him.
She urges LegCo to approve a fund to help the victims' families. The New People's Party is calling on Filipino domestic helpers in Hong Kong not to vote for Aquino in the next election. The meeting in Bali appeared to have complicated matters.
Actually, before the 3 years anniversary of the tragedy, I can tell you that we have planned to go to Manila once and to another occasion to meet the Philippine government official. However, because of the uncertainty of any meeting with the Philippine government official. We have decided not to go at that point of time.
Che Chi-hang, whose brother was shot dead in the Philippines, said if the chief executive cannot represent them at the diplomatic level, maybe Beijing can. He wants the chief executive to ask Beijing to intervene. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Lawmakers say military land in Hong Kong is underutilized, and part of the land at Gun Club Hill Barracks has even been converted into a private club. They've urged the government to consider taking back some of those plots, but the Secretary for Security insists there is no military land being left idle. Jenny Lam again.
There are 19 plots of land meant for military purposes around Hong Kong. Legislators pointed out today that 5 of those, including the barracks in Kowloon East, Sekong and Tai O, have a low utilisation rate. They want the government to look into the possibility of taking back some of the land, saying the police force is well established to maintain law and order, and the People's Liberation Army only has a supplementary role in this respect.
Whether the authorities will raise with the Central People's Government the turning over to the SAR government without compensation those military sites left idle for a long time with low utilisation rates is suitable for public use.
Secretary for Security Lai Tung Kwok stressed there is no direct relationship between for what purpose the land is used and how often it is used. He said under the Basic Law, military forces stationed in the SAR is for defence purposes. The police and the military, he added, are not the same. The legislators then ask why part of the land at Gun Club Hill Barracks is being used as a private club.
Now there are people buying membership and then they use the facilities and this place is self-financing. I don't see how there's any defense purposes.
The Security Secretary explained that the arrangement was agreed upon by Britain and China back in 1994.
In fact, the size and number of military sites held by the Hong Kong garrison are far smaller and fewer than those held by the former British forces stationed in Hong Kong before the reunification.
The total amount of military land now, he said, is actually about 42% less than before Hong Kong came under Chinese rule again. Jenny Lam, TVB News.
Regional leaders discussed a host of issues at their summit in Brunei today. As Tony Sabine reports, they are adopting stronger measures to fight problems such as air pollution.
Southeast Asian and other regional leaders are in Brunei to discuss some of the most pressing issues of our time. Premier Li Keqiang, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, and US Secretary of State John Kerry are among those there. Besides the 23rd ASEAN Summit, there's the 16th China-ASEAN Leaders Meeting, the 16th ASEAN China, Japan and South Korea Leaders Meeting, and the 8th East Asia Summit, which opens tomorrow. One of the key issues facing the region, economic growth, such as efforts by the Japanese leader to boost the world's third largest economy.
Japan's growth and dynamism has brought much benefit to ASEAN over the years. Hence, I am pleased to see the positive changes in Japan's economy. Under your new growth strategy, Prime Minister Abe, which I believe will have much desired impacts on our region.
Kerry, for his part, is urging China and its neighbours to cool tensions over territorial disputes in the South China Sea. He's calling for a binding code of conduct to govern maritime behaviour. On efforts to fight air pollution, Southeast Asian nations today adopted a new system to improve smog monitoring. This follows thick smog caused by fires in Indonesia earlier this year that also affected Singapore and Malaysia. ASEAN leaders also pledged stronger action to combat violence against women and children. They've urged a holistic and multidisciplinary approach to promote the rights of women and children. Tony Sabine, TVB News.
Janet Yellen, the vice chair at the U.S. Federal Reserve, will be nominated by President Barack Obama as the head of the powerful central bank later today. If the appointment is confirmed by the U.S. Senate, it will be the first time a woman has led a major central bank anywhere in the world. James Aiken has the story.
Janet Yellen is currently the number 2 person in charge at the world's most influential central bank and is considered a close ally of outgoing Fed Chair Ben Bernanke. It's widely expected that Yellen would continue along the path of the Fed policy charted by her current boss. Yellen emerged as a top candidate after Obama's former economic advisor, Lawrence Summers, withdrew from consideration amid rising opposition. The 67-year-old Yellen has been a strong supporter of major bond purchases to keep interest rates at record lows in order to stimulate U.S. economic growth. Yellen's resume includes extensive research in monetary policy, as well as teaching at the University of California at Berkeley. Besides becoming the first woman to head the Federal Reserve, Yellen would also be the first Democrat to lead the Fed since Paul Volcker was chosen in 1979. But her nomination could face resistance in Congress, where critics argue that low interest rates are stoking the risk of high inflation and could even lead to more bubbles in stocks or real estate. Nonetheless, Yellen is expected to gather enough votes in the Democrat-controlled Senate to secure the position.
Already this week, I had to miss.
Obama's pick of Yellen comes ahead of what many suspect will be a major transition for the Fed. If the economy shows continued signs of improvement, the Federal Reserve is expected to ease its stimulus program by cutting back on the purchases of the Treasury and mortgage bonds that have been helping to keep a lid on loan rates. After serving for 8 years, Ben Bernanke will step down as chairman of the U.S. Central Bank at the end of January. James Aiken, TVB News.
3 American scientists have won this year's Nobel Prize for Chemistry for laying the foundations that enable scientists to create computer models to understand and predict complex chemical processes. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences praised Martin Karplus, Michael Levitt, and Aryeh Warshel for pioneering the use of computer models that mirror chemical reactions. This work helps in complex processes such as the development of drugs and the photosynthesis in green leaves. The trio now share the $1.2 million US prize. And still ahead in our newscast, an attempt to invoke special LegCo powers to investigate Paul Chan fails. Anthony Wu calls manpower shortage Hong Kong's biggest medical challenge, and Malala Yousafzai's autobiography.